we're live.
This really doesn't work. You have to mute.
Well, he said that I should just exit out of this window once it's
You could, I would just mute YouTube.
oh.
But yeah, that worked. It worked.
Oh, there's Liz.
If it worked, it worked.
Okay, you think we got everybody?
This is
We
connecting.
lost more.
She's not in your grid.
Nope, we lost her. But we are live.
Okay, when do we get started? Lauren, I'm sure we'll try it again.
There she is, waiting room.
Okay.
Like you're running a video game.
What is that?
There's a glitch in the
This is
simulation.
my voice recorder.
Okay. We're appearing from New York City. It's Saturday Night Live.
That was the best cold
I
open.
apologize to anybody from the public who's on YouTube watching. We had a few technical difficulties with the new system, but our able admin was able to fix it, so thank you, Nicole. I want to call to order the meeting of the workshop meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Rochester of February 28th. We could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it
stands,
one
one nation, indivisible,
Liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Chair Jones,
Here.
Mr. Zarowski,
Here.
Mr. Pinsky.
Absent without us.
Ms. Lindstrom. She's muted, but she's here.
Halfway here.
Okay.
Mr. Williams,
I'm here.
Mr. Grasso,
Present.
Mr.
Camera's
Garza.
actually working.
Good.
And then Anne Marie, Ms. Maloney,
I know she's here, so she's
Sort of
muted.
half here.
Okay.
and then myself, Nicole Knapp, the secretary,
Okay.
present. And then we also have Liz Axelson present, our consulting planner from CPL.
Thank you. Just an update to your agenda changed significantly. We may be out of here by 7:30. We have Chromestone lot line improvement tonight. We also have a discussion on Walnut Brook tonight. But the training session had to be canceled. Mary Lou Christiana had a last minute change in her plan, so she won't be here tonight. We'll have to reschedule probably for the workshop of March, because I think next regular meeting is going to be pretty packed. So why don't we do Chromestone? If you remember, this was the project, the two-step project. We first did a natural subdivision back in December. That was accomplished, and then the applicant reapplied, this time for the lot line, to accomplish the entire process they wanted to accomplish. So what I'm going to read to you tonight is the certification of the lot line change. It's very short, sweet and to the point, and I'll be looking for a motion to approve the certification. So this is the town of Rochester, lot improvement for Chromestone LLC, owner Kevin Meehan, doing business as Chromestone LLC. Reason for the request: applicant proposes a natural subdivision of 32 acres, plus or minus 32 acres, into two parcels. One lot, both parcels are located in the AR3 zoning district at 31 Upper Whitfield Road in Accord. And one lot will be 15 acres plus or minus, and the other lot will be 17 acres plus or minus. I think I mentioned already the zoning district is AR3. So again, this is just a certification. The planning board has reviewed the plat, certifies the lot line improvement proposed will meet town of Rochester lot requirements for the AR3 zoning district, and for recording purposes only, further represents an exempt lot improvement in accordance with section 125-18 of the Town of Rochester subdivision regulations. No subdivision approval is required or given by the planning board. The planning board further grants the authority to the chair to sign the plat certifying the lot improvement for filing purposes without further resolution upon receipt of the chair's determination that such plat meets the requirements of the code and is in agreement with the sketch plan provided for review. And you have the sketch plan on your computer in the Google Drive. There's also a copy if anybody from the board wants to look at the map. The plat shall be prepared by a licensed land surveyor or professional engineer to describe the conveyances involved by leaps and bounds and shall include the Town of Rochester lot line note that these plans are acknowledged by the Town of Rochester and for recording purposes only to represent an exempt lot improvement in accordance with section 125-18 of the Town of Rochester subdivision regulations. No subdivision approval is required or given. Lot improvement parcel shall not be considered a separate building lot apart from the tract to which it is being added. The owner shall file in the office of Ulster County Clerk such certified plat bearing the chair's signature within 62 days of this certification. Further, the owner shall have the responsibility to return 4 Ulster County Clerk certified copies of the plat to the Town of Rochester Planning Board within 30 days of the filing. And I'll just note, I should have noted earlier, representing the applicant, Mr. Meehan, is Heather Gabriel from Medenbeck and Agers Surveyors and Engineer. So having read the lot line certification, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Can we, I think we maybe should change some of this language in the reason for request part. Because this one, I admittedly find a little confusing still, but we already did the natural subdivision.
Right.
So now we're, I don't want to say undoing the natural subdivision, but we are modifying the result of it.
Yep.
So here it says applicant proposes a natural subdivision into 2 parcels separated by Upper Whitfield. And I think we should reword that.
How about we reword it like this? So if you
Yeah,
look at
go
the
ahead.
agenda, like at the agenda, it actually applicant proposes a lot line change.
Yeah.
Board decided to accomplish this by first approving the natural subdivision, which was accomplished on 12/13/21. The second step is a lot line change, which is the nature of this certification.
Hey, Sam,
Yeah.
that was me cutting and pasting too fast. I think it should be that we already did one, which was the natural subdivision. And then we pretend like we had sleeping serum and we don't know anything. And that this one should now just say the applicant proposes a lot line revision and we treat it as if we never knew the natural subdivision existed. So it shouldn't be contingent upon whatever. It should just be, I missed it when I redid the cut and paste changing stuff.
I would just say, yeah, applicant proposes a lot line improvement of blah, blah, blah,
Exactly.
such that new lot or revised lot 1 will have this many
Yep.
acres, revised lot 2.
That's exactly what it should be. It was exactly. So it should be something that stands completely on its own, completely separate, different.
Okay, so it's going to read applicant proposes a lot line improvement such that the proposed lot 1 and the proposed lot 2 of the acreage.
Yep.
Will stand alone.
You want those acres?
As 2 separate lots.
Yeah, we should have the acres.
Lot 1 is 17.37,
How much?
and lot 2 is 15.39.
And 15.39.
And you now.
So
read-
actually, guys, I think there is one of those in there and you might be looking at the old one, but it doesn't really matter.
You know what? It doesn't matter. Let me just reread. Applicant proposes a lot line improvement such that proposed lot 1 of 17.37 acres and proposed lot 2 of 15.39 acres will stand each on its own.
I would just change proposed to revised.
revised lot 1 and revised lot 2.
Yeah, and maybe the stand on their own part to come out, because they're already 2 lots, so we're just editing the boundaries.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anybody have any other comments? So are you making a motion with those changes?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve it.
Oh, and let me just, and let's leave parcels located in the AR3 zone.
Yeah,
Okay, let's leave that. Okay. Go ahead, Sam.
oh, you want me to say it all?
No, I want you to
Oh.
make the motion.
Oh,
I said it all.
make a motion to approve or certify the lot improvement as revised.
Entertain a second.
I'll second.
Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Patrick, was that you saying aye?
That was me saying, yep.
Anybody opposed? So it carries.
I'm gonna abstain. I just don't, this whole thing I don't like.
So you're abstaining?
Yeah, I'm just abstaining.
Okay.
I don't
So we
a
have
problem.
4 ayes. No nays, 1 abstention. Okay. And I say aye. All right, so that's, and we'll take care of the adjustments tomorrow, make sure we have all those correct. Okay. All right, so now the next thing, next item on the agenda. And I would-
Thanks, Heather.
hoping-
You're all done.
You're
done?
Thanks, Heather. Go home and enjoy dinner.
I will. It took more time
Thank
getting
you.
on the live stream. than-
You can stay here.
We'll pull up a chair.
The next item on the agenda is to chat about Walnut Grove.
I am curious about that.
You're
can
more than
sit
right over there if you want.
All
So
right,
if you may believe you're part of the public. as
I will do
opposed
that.
to the
I am.
applicant's representative.
Just move the chairs back.
Just put that on. Thank you.
that's true.
So
Yeah,
let me just
Go all
give
the way
you.
to the-
No, you don't have
It depends on if you want to be on. video
to.
or
So
not.
let's get to it. I was hoping that Mary Lou would be here in order to give the overview of the economic enterprise overlay zone. But in essence, what's happening is that the applicant who was here before, back in March, April of 2021, and or they were before the town in March of 2021. And what they've now, and they came to us with a proposal to develop the parcel known as Walnut Brook as, I'll call it multi-housing, but to renovate the buildings, take down some of the buildings on that plat of land that I think we're all familiar with. Subsequent to that, in the last couple of months to a year, they approached the town board and/or the town board approached them about doing something that's called an economic enterprise overlay zone. And they've applied for that. The purpose of an economic overlay, enterprise overlay zone, is to take a piece of property that is underutilized, not being utilized, generally an existing parcel with an existing structure on it. And if the proposed use is not covered by our chart of accounts, if you would, by our zoning chart, they can apply for relief from that zoning chart by going to the town board. And the town board can give that relief to do something which may not be permitted under the existing zoning. Now, some here, many here, all here, none here, they disagree with whether this is in fact something that should go to the town board or not, whether it's something that we could handle ourselves, the planning board. I think that ship has sailed. The town board has at least accepted an application for the EEO. And they're in the process of identifying, or they already identified themselves as the lead agency and identified all the appropriate participating agencies. And we're one of them. So they asked us for input. And this is really just the first step in the input steps. They asked us for our input. I don't look at this as being our final input because for sure, the things that need to be done by the applicant are at the early stages. So that's what tonight's about, to give them some input. Let me just go back and kind of pick and choose some factoids that you need to know about. First, I sent an email out Thursday or Friday with some of the documents that I pulled out over the last year and a half, 2 years. There are 7 of them, I believe, starting with the finding by our building inspector as to what they should be classified as, followed by a document by CPL, where CPL went through and gave some input on the proposed project, followed by a series of minutes that were compiled as a result of a gateway meeting that was held back in early 2021. Multiple participants, myself, Sam, I think you may have been there, Lauren was there, Mike Baden was there, the applicants, and numerous people from the county, including the Department of Public Works, Department of Transportation, Dennis Doyle, so on and so forth. So there's some minutes there that you can read. I don't know who compiled the minutes. It may have been the past chair, Marilyn Lynch. Then there's also some new material that's been provided by the town board, including a long form EAF, and it's long, as well as some additional material that the applicant provided within the last month to the town board, the town board forwarded to us. And it's basically material to assist the town board in going through the secret process. Now, I will tell you, with discussions that I've had with Supervisor Baden, as well as with Liz Axels from CPL, that everybody is of the mind that there's a lot more information that they, mainly the town board, needs from the applicant. The applicant has acknowledged that, in fact, there is more information needed to fulfill the secret process. What Supervisor Baden is looking for us is some input on what we have before us so far, and what are the things that this planning board is concerned with. Another factoid. Third or maybe last factoid is our role in this is not to approve the EEO, certainly give input on whether we feel it's appropriate or not. I think the vote is sailed already, but we can certainly give input on the things that we're concerned with. When the town board, excuse me, the town board is finished with those items under the EEO section of our town code, when they're finished with that, they're going to give it to the planning board to do the site plan. The site plan, what does that include? It includes such things as lighting, landscaping, parking, interior roadways and interior sidewalks. And there are some other things too. What it does not include, this is the town board's responsibility, is to identify whether or not there's adequate water and septic. I might add, I'm not quite sure, that's why I want to review, to what extent we're involved in any kind of traffic studies, not interior traffic studies, but studies of 209. I can tell you, and you'll see this in some of the descriptions from the applicant, and it's changed a little bit over the last few years, but essentially there's 24 to 27 units, depending on which document you read. Again, it's work in progress. And so 24 units, if you assume 2 cars per unit, question 1, it's 50 cars added to that section of 209 from in and out of a single major driveway. That'll be determined the location and size and width and all that be determined by the DOT. Whether or not it needs a traffic study is yet to be determined. There is not one available. There is work that I'm aware of being done by the new engineering firm on the case. There is work being done by them on both septic as well as the water capabilities in that area, even to the point of doing drawdown tests on contiguous properties and houses or commercial facilities within the area to make sure that at its maximum daily drawdown, that the wells of the contiguous landowners are not impacted to the extent that they all, what's the, I'll call it the rescission rate, what is the recovery rate? Thank you. What's the recovery rate? So there is that work going on. And I believe some of the, I don't remember which engineering firms, there are a couple involved, so I don't want to name them without remembering what they are. Again, I think Mary Lou probably could have filled us in on that. So that's as much as I can tell you at this point. So what I suggested to you, when I sent you the material, is that you take a look at it, and you particularly pay attention to, and I did make packages of everything. Pass one some more, one for Zach, Nicole, this one for you. And this is essentially just copies of what I sent you last Thursday on email. Most importantly is a CPL study, which is dated, not study, but review, which is dated May 26, 2021. And the other important document is the full EAF, which is dated January 29th of this year. So I suggested that for this meeting, we concentrate on major items that this board is concerned with. I think what I'm going to ask after we go through this, we flush some things out, I would really like to see just a quick series of bullet points. I deal real good with bullet points from everybody and anybody who's on the board, including Anne Marie, our alternate, that I can compile. I'm sure there'll be a lot of duplication, that's fine. I'll compile and get to Supervisor Baden by the end of the week, if not sooner. So I need it in quick order. And I know you've had this for a while, so you probably have a lot of thoughts about it. I'm going to be quiet and just listen to members of the board here. I'm going to go around first with the people who are here, and then I'll go to our board members who are on the video. Why don't I start with you, Zach?
Sure. So I have a couple of things. One of them is that the Maybrook is in a business district. So I would like to confirm the aesthetics presented of the buildings that people are going to be seeing if they drive down 209. I just want to, I know that we have renderings of them, but I kind of want to see them more in depth, more detailed, siding, paint, landscaping, materials along the lines of what those buildings look like. Kind of like what we did for Lucky Patrol. Another,
I agree with you.
yeah. Another one of my major concerns is that on the parcel that shows a lot of overlays for soils for farming, hydric soils, and some biologically important areas surrounding the property. So this is just a major concern that I have. So there's going to be a lot going on. An additional area of concern is maybe we can check with the DOT. I believe we deal with John Riley about transportation. I know that there may not be any issues since it's pre-existing. However, last time it was operating, it was a seasonal building. So moving to long-term and full-time, I think that we might need to do a further traffic study as well to see if that's something that would cause.
Yeah, I think part of that is also, I don't know if they've reached out to the school district to see how they're going to handle school buses.
Right.
Are they, I have no idea how many children might be there, but you have to assume since it'll be, open for the general public, you're going to have some students there.
Right.
And does that mean the school buses will stop on 209? Are they going to go into the project? I don't think school buses are allowed to go into private property like that. I don't know what the policies are.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be concerned with that, how they handle it and the
Agreed.
school district.
Yes. And then my last concern is just the new entrance, what they're going to do with lighting and signage as you pull in and out of the property.
Yeah, I know in the EAF, when they're dealing with lighting, they do mention it. They realize that they have to subscribe to the town's dark skies provisions.
Yeah.
Not just for street lighting, but lighting on the buildings themselves. they have to subscribe to all of that, and that would be one of the things that we would be looking at. Obviously, it'd be Liz looking at it, either her or one of the people from her firm to make sure that it combines with all the codes. And the same for the landscaping, you know. But Zach, if you could put all your comments, series of bullet points, that'd be great.
Sure.
Well,
I have a lot of notes that I took based on all the things that you sent out, previous meetings, past special use permits and requests. So just go through these real quick, if that's okay. One, I looked at the EEO and the qualifications, and I am struggling. I would love for Mary Lou to weigh in at another time on how does this actually even qualify for an EEO. I'm struggling to get to that point. That's just number one. Number two, being a newer member to the board, I am concerned as to how Mary Lou and Liz act on our behalf, as well as they're acting on the town board's behalf. So I don't know if there is a understanding that there's an alternative. I know when we had Wayward Ranch, we had an alternative attorney act on the planning board's behalf, different than what was acting on behalf of the board. I think that this board should probably discuss if that's to our advantage. Are there any advantages? What is the disadvantage? And more importantly, we have two agencies, right? We have Liz acting as CPL, which in Liz's defense, she's, reads the code by the book, justifies both sides. I get it. And then Mary Lou, I don't want anybody to be in this difficult situation because of a question that we may ask that's potentially not in favor of the town board or potentially in favor of the town board, and the town board asks a different question. So I don't know if there's a recusal that is planned to happen there, if there's one that should happen there. So I'm looking for some seasoned board member input on past practices and similar to the Wayward Ranch.
so that one I'll answer
Okay.
as opposed to,
Sure.
I'm sure many of the others, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But so Wayward Ranch, we didn't have a separate attorney. Mary Lou was the attorney.
Okay.
The applicant obviously had their own attorney. It's the same attorney that's keeps suing everybody in Kingston over the Kingstonian.
Okay.
But it was that attorney. They're very good.
Yeah.
So I've had a discussion with Mary Lou and with Liz, very brief, but is there a conflict?
Is there a conflict? I don't know the
So
answer.
both of them have indicated to me they don't believe there is, but if
Okay.
it turns out that there might be, they can't see now. Yeah, Mary Lou was representing the applicant. That's a clear conflict.
Sure.
The planning
Liz-
board and the town board were to have conflict, then there would be, then Mary Lou said she would recuse from
Recuse
both.
herself.
What it sounds like is that the town.
That's an important note. She said she'd probably recuse
That's
her
what
vote.
she said.
Right. So I think that, I'm just making notes and asking for more seasoned representatives, because I feel like there is, like Sam said, there could be a conflict. We don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with one. Except
But
that-
Rick, there could be a conflict in opinion. There could be a conflict in what our position is. There's plenty of room for, once again, if the planning board was to say, you know what, we're finding it difficult to get answers that are to our questions, either from the attorney or either from CPL, I find it less likely from CPL because as Mark just delineated, it's pretty, Liz and the team pretty much go through the line items and define it. But we can vote and say we want somebody else also. She doesn't have to recuse herself. We can say we do not feel we are being properly represented and choose to do that. I just want everybody to know, it is not that we have to wait for her to recuse. And the same with the town board. If they felt there was bias, if we felt there was bias or she felt there was bias, or the town board did, then we could say we would like to vote and retain outside counsel. Mary Lewis said that 3 times to us in this application.
I don't disagree
So,
with you. I just-
Everybody needs to be well aware of that as we go through it.
I don't disagree with you. I don't necessarily agree with you. I don't see any conflicts at this point. I don't think there's going to be a conflict with Liz. Liz deals with
Agreed.
facts.
Right. Liz is
And
black.
has no opinion, presumably one way or the other, except the facts. She deals with numbers, facts. period.
Right, she
As far as
follows.
Mary Lou is concerned, it's been my experience, she deals with the law. Now, it becomes obvious that we have a difference of opinion as to whether this is an EEO or not.
Right.
I'm not gonna get my, pardon the French, my bowels in an uproar over that, because I believe that's the town board. We can say we don't agree. I'm not of the opinion that I would want to see Mary Lou recused because of that. She's going to simply advise the board as to what their legal rights are and what their legal responsibilities are. And if what they do is different from what we feel they should do, then we should probably run for town board.
No, it was one of our topics of conversation in our training.
Yep.
So
And I wish Mary Lou was here because I know
Right.
that she would have a lawyerly approach to it.
right.
Right.
And then my question was directed to her just because we haven't been through this situation in this depth, and I don't know if there even requires it. I'm sure that, like Lauren said, Mary Lou has mentioned it 3 times that if we wanted to go outside, we have the ability. I don't think that she
Yeah,
was
I don't know
getting.
whether that means she's anticipating it.
Well, that's
Or
what I
she-
was
I
concerned.
don't know. So when she's here,
Yep.
we can
Okay.
certainly ask for that. But that's, yeah, I'm concerned. I'm
Okay.
less concerned with the CPL.
I'm going to keep going if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Zach brought up a really good point about traffic. This, the previous owner, Mr. May, utilized this as a seasonal usage, as Mr. Davis, our CEO, made it very clear in his October 13, 2020 decision. It operated in the late 70s and early 80s and was used on the weekends for bus trips, right? For people to come up here and utilize the summer in the agricultural environment. It closed in 2008, and it was strictly for weekend uses only. So Zach brought up a point about transportation. I'm gonna add to that, if that's okay, is I think that getting the DOT involved for some sort of a traffic study, but I want to know what depths of traffic studies exist. Is there a traffic study light, a traffic study medium, a traffic study heavy, based on how many apartments or utilizations are going to be happening there? And I potentially like to know if there's going to be a traffic light that would go there eventually. As you mentioned, bus stops, things like that. So I'm piggybacking on yours. On the actual site plan, I'll go to the site plan items. The septic. So my concern about the septic is not necessarily the size of it, it's the location. Where they're proposing building 10 through 12 is on the downward slope in front of the motel. I firmly believe that instead of building 10 through 12 being in the front of the view shed, in my opinion, it should be to the back of the motel, and the septic should be either in the front of the old motel or to the right side of the driveway, where that sloping is downhill. Water runs downhill, it doesn't run uphill. I have a very big concern with where they're going to leach this current septic layout, which is within 100 feet of our delineated wetlands, national federal
Yeah, I
wetlands.
think what they're gonna do, what the proposal was a year and a half ago, was they were not going to have, I believe, that they were not gonna have leach fields, they were actually gonna have a package plan.
Yeah.
And that may have changed in
Sure.
the latest site plan, but they were gonna have a miniature package plan. I'll
Okay.
call it that.
Yeah.
Not being a septic expert.
Sure.
It was gonna be treated in that plant, quote unquote, it would have to be maintained.
Yep.
By the owner from rentals or former septic district, I don't know.
Yep.
And then it would exit out and be discharged into the rundown.
Rick, if you read it, from
Oh.
Clapper, he says it will be whatever is needed to be done that is the least expensive. So when I went through all of the files, nothing had been decided upon. That also goes to Mark's point. So instead, we're going to have a engineered packaged raised system that dumps into the rondout.
The Mumbakas.
The Mumbai, it's not, no, actually, it's Mill Creek at that point, I think still, but. So that still begs the idea of also this structure being, a floodplain zone isn't exact, obviously. It's within, we had one map that came from the first planner / architect, where buildings and the septic were in the floodplain zone. If you look at the first map, the second map now does not have them in with the new engineer. for all intents and purposes, what you can say is, we're very close to a flood zone, and you're very close to putting either a leach field there or putting a raised package engineered, which seems to be somewhat of an ecological issue, a quote unquote, could be, depending how it's maintained, if it's maintained, et cetera.
I
So
think,
if
I
you
don't
could do a
know.
leach field, it's better to have it down. If you can't do one, then you could have the other
So
alternative.
because I don't know what the septic plans look like, I was just thinking, anybody who is gonna build a house, infrastructure, whatever, water rolls downhill, not uphill. And based on where building 10 through 12 are, they're down on the setback where the
It
old
was,
pool was.
as I recall, a year and a half ago, there was talk about that exactly. and
Okay.
It was gonna have to be pumped up
Yeah, that's,
to either the fields or to the package plant. In any case, I think we have to agree that there's, for better or for worse,
Yeah.
plenty of camps and other facilities that are already putting treated water into the run down into
Sure.
the Mont. So if it's treated properly, it's allowed.
we don't care where it is, right?
It's, I would almost rather see it in a package plant treated properly.
Agreed.
than in a leach field.
Oh, I agree.
Right. A lot of the pollution that occurs there, which at one time we were monitoring it, comes from septic systems that are not being maintained.
Yeah. So to answer that, to go back to that topic is, and it sounds like Maren is agreeing, is water rolls downhill. In this event, if it's not going to be a package plan, we probably want to suggest.
Well, I think, it's a good point about where, buildings 10, 11.
Those are on where the old
10,
pool
11,
was.
12.
So if you're looking at the Maybrook, you
Right
see
there.
the building, it's in the front.
Yeah, there's a lot of, to me, it looks ugly.
Yeah, agreed. Right.
It should be staggered. Where the hell, pardon the French, where the heck are you gonna put parking? for-
Exactly.
Are you gonna just have,
Which is my
what's
next
the
topic.
song about, pave a parking lot?
Yep.
But is it just gonna be a single parking lot,
Gravel, what is it?
40 cars long or whatever? Or is it gonna be somehow associated with the actual building units? Be staggered, look a little bit prettier if you
Yeah,
would.
sure.
So there's all those kinds of issues.
that-
that
I'm going to keep
we need to
going.
mention so that we
Yep.
were, I wasn't.
Hey, guys, Liz has some comments also that she could help us. She's weighing in on,
Yeah, hang on,
septic
Marilyn, I'm
stuff?
not finished talking. Hang on.
Yep.
Hang on, we'll get to it. I'm not impressed by what I saw recently in terms of the site plan.
Right. I'm not either. I'm going to keep going before we go to Liz.
Yeah, let's finish with,
Okay.
with the,
So in an EEO, I don't know the answer to this. It's a question. Is there a way for the town to enforce their 20% pricing of economical housing in the 24 units? They're saying that 80% will be of market value and 20% will remain in an economical pricing district. And I would like to know what percentage they plan to increase those on a year-over-year basis. Is there going to be a 2% price increase year over year, 20% increase?
usually what they do, but I'm not an expert. but
Sure.
Usually what they do is to tie it to HUD numbers, the average median income.
And the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Average cost of housing in the area. And then what they go on and say, and again, this is a town board, we can make recommendations,
Yep.
but it's not my area of
I
expertise.
understand.
But usually then what you wind up doing is, 10, 20, 30% is this at 80% of the median, another percentage at 70, another percentage at 90, another percent at 100, so on and so
Sure.
forth. And the agreement reads, and future increases are always tied to this particular metric.
And I'm good with that. I just want to know
But I
how
don't know how it works,
and how we enforce it.
and I don't know.
Yeah.
that-
Okay, so that's a question for Mary Lou.
Well, I think what it is to bring it up. There's nobody that I know of in the town board that has necessary
The
expertise.
answer
in
is
this.
it would be code enforcement, and as we know, code enforcement in this town has a very difficult job enforcing anything,
Correct.
which is not a dig on them, it's just
No,
like,
they're,
Yeah, I
the
wouldn't wanna-
mechanism is code enforcement.
so I have a concern about restricting the initial ideology of a 20% economical rent and how the town board plans to enforce that to stay in that economical zone.
Yeah, I guess, and again, I think they're asking for additional density, which seems to me that the town board may be okay with, but the quid pro quo was a certain proportion have to be at less than market rate.
Which I read that. right.
So is it,
I just want to know how we, as the town board, plan to enforce the rate staying.
well, I don't even know how they intend to actually set.
I don't either.
But then when they do set them, how are they gonna monitor?
I'll go to the site plan because those are things that are probably for your notebook. Move the three proposed buildings 10 through 12, where the septic is proposed or in front of the old farmhouse. Again, I think that building 10 through 12 should either be on the right-hand side where the old farmhouse is or behind the motel where the current septic is proposed.
I agree.
Building 7 is the economic housing building, which is going to be 8 units for less rent. I'd like to just make sure that based on the applicant, that is what their plan is for that location, because they intend to increase the size of that location. The landscaping in the front of building 10 through 12, I need to again understand the enforcement as Sam mentioned. Code enforcement does a very good job, but they do the job that they can do. And I think that as we've seen on prior applications, such as the drive to deli and things like that, I am actually almost to the point of saying that we need to see that installed prior to them getting signed.
Yeah, I think
plans.
with some of the things in this project, we had talked about having money set up a bond, have it bonded,
Okay,
so that. if
that's a
some of
great
the-
solution.
Some of the things aren't done.
We can do it for them.
Well, you have somebody do it.
Okay. I'm good with
In
that.
huge projects, you do that with sewer systems, water
Sure.
systems,
They don't meet.
water collection systems. I think landscape, our experience has been, we've gotten screwed now twice.
Yeah.
On
So I think the
landscape.
bond is a great
It's
solution.
just some sort of bond, performance bond, I couldn't think of any. but-
Right.
Remember the things you're talking about in the site plan.
Yep.
The town board needs to make sure that our site plan concerns are taken into consideration as they approve the general sketch.
I have
Because the details of that, they should deal with.
right. I can't even get to the site plan because I can't even get over the EEO hurdle. So I'm not even to that point, but I'm with you. And then I think building 8 just needs to be destroyed. They're saying that it's potentially going to stay. It's an old shed and it needs to go, and it's right near the septic system, and there's no value. So I think building 8 needs to be
That's where they're
destroyed.
storing the double wide lawnmower or something.
The liquid plumber for their septic system. Okay, that's all I have.
Sam?
I guess my comments are I agree with everything that's been said so far. But my general comment is actually in kind of a different vein. I guess the first thing I want to say is, just as someone who lives in this town, I have a business in this town. One of the things that's a challenge is housing. And I, just on a very high level, think that seeing a dilapidated, rundown, abandoned property revitalized and turned into housing is something that, just in a general way, I feel very positively
Agreed.
about. And I applaud the idea in its broadest outline. I just want to say that. But then my real comment, like specifically related to what we're trying to do right now, is we're asked to comment in a seeker framework about what's been submitted. And I feel, without disagreeing with anything that anyone has said, I agree with everything, that our comment back should be simply to the effect that, like, this project at this point does not have anywhere approaching sufficient information for this board to make substantive comments on seeker. Like, we've brought up several things in the EAF that we think might warrant further investigation, but like, it's not, I don't think, productive for us to like go through this EAF and think about how a seeker form should be filled out with this level of information. And I think we've got 2 very relevant documents that have not at this point been addressed by this applicant. One is the May 26th, and I repeat, May 26th, that's about 8 months ago, letter from Liz and from CPL outlining about 3 pages worth of bullet points that should be addressed before seeker is completed. From what I've seen, none of those bullet points have been addressed in any meaningful way. So like, my first comment is this board, or at this point I'm speaking for myself, I do not feel prepared to evaluate this application in regards to seeker until that letter has been addressed and the letter the planning board sent as part of the initial request for lead agency that was circulated by the town board. We consented to the town board being lead agency. We didn't challenge them on that. But we, at that time, prepared a letter which included, again, a fairly lengthy list, many of which are the same things that are in Liz Axelson's letter. But that also has not been addressed by this applicant. So my feeling is, again, not to disagree with anything that anyone said so far, or probably anything that anyone's going to say, just like, I don't actually think it's super productive for us to get into these details at this point without more information. Like, there's no proposed line of disturbance, like there's no landscape, like there's just like almost nothing.
Yep.
And I just like, and then there's the overshadowing question of like, is an EEO germane or legal here? Like, one of the first questions on the seeker form is, does this conflict with adopted land use policies materially? And like, haven't seen an answer from the applicant on that. The town board moved forward with considering it, but I do think that's a question that needs to be addressed in seeker. Like, is this an appropriate, does this conflict with land use laws?
And it doesn't.
Right. You're saying, what Myron's saying is it doesn't conflict with existing adopted zoning. Therefore, what's the need for an EEO? That's the question.
Exactly.
But I think it's
that was the
important.
nature of our response.
That was our initial response. And again, like, I don't want to get mired back down in those legalistic or like very nuanced objections. But like, I think that among many other things needs to be addressed, not really by the town board, but by the applicant. The applicant needs to say why this, does all the things in the letter from CPL. And, basically they need to actually think about how seekers can be answered and whether the documentation is there. And it just seems to me like we're not close. And what our comment at this point in time should be is we have a lot of questions, none of which are answerable by us at this time because of lack of it.
What I'm gonna do now, thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Liz, if it's okay with Maren and Patrick and Emery, I'm gonna let Liz talk, and then Maren and Patrick and Emery will come to you. Liz,
Not allowed.
you wanted to make some comments on items that have already been talked about?
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to let you know is that in the plans that were submitted, there is a system that is basically a septic tank, a dosing station, and then subsurface discharge. So I don't know how that constitutes a package plant. I also, at the town board meeting recently indicated that there wasn't enough information to warrant a review. And in fact, the applicant representatives were kind of acknowledging that. And then the question was raised again, should I do an updated review? And I said that it didn't make any sense.
Right.
And that they should submit more information, as the applicants were saying that they would do. Most importantly, just in terms of the planning board's role, you guys probably already know this, but since you're an involved agency, whatever happens in seeker, the information that's provided and the ultimate decision one way or another, the planning board is an involved agency. So the town board has to look at the whole action, and I believe that they're poised to do so. I didn't get any impression from the town board that not doing a review now was an issue. For some reason, I guess this recent submittal and meeting was kind of like a check-in. Quickly regarding traffic, CPL does have traffic transportation engineers and all that. It's just that right now we don't have enough information to even frame what could the issues be. And, usually the applicant would indicate something about persons per household, numbers of bedrooms, and project, how many trips per day, AM, PM, peak hour on weekdays and peak hours on Saturdays. We would at least see that so that there could be some kind of response. And then I just want to touch on the whole issue of conflict. On the one hand, I agree with Mary Lou that if the board feels uncomfortable about me representing the town board and the planning board, that of course is something you must decide. I've had many situations in many communities where I have worked with, boards with different aspects, a ZBA and a planning board, or a town board and a planning board. So that's not uncommon in my level of practice. And I have to look broadly at the needs of the entire community, comprehensive plan, zoning, et cetera, and seeker. So I would, of course, do my best to do that. But I'm, obviously, if the board has concerns about that, it is your prerogative to, have somebody else come on board. But I don't think there's any inherent, as a matter of my professional practice, I don't necessarily side with one board or the other because I'm a planning consultant for the town. So, but I understand the concern. And the bottom line is that there just isn't enough information here that warrants any further review. It's good for the board to put a broad frame out of these are all the issues we have. We need this information because we are an involved agency. And the seeker review has to cover not just the broader town board zoning issues, but all of the issues of any approving agency, including the planning board. So then I just want to step away and let you guys go because you're coming up with great issues. Any questions at all about anything I've said?
Liz, can I ask?
Let's go to Maren.
Patrick has a question.
Patrick, you have a question, Liz?
Well, I've been looking at the site plan, and it looks like gobbledygook. I mean, honestly, it's a mess.
I would agree that it's early in the process and therefore needs a lot of work.
Yeah, well, I mean, to go forward with, I have to fully agree with Mark and Sam and Zach that this entire thing, and Liz actually, that there's so much open on so many different levels that I'm not even sure how we could come up with coherent recommendations on almost anything.
Well,
So,
one of your
I don't
recommendations
disagree.
could be you need more info.
I don't
Yeah,
disagree with you. Keep in mind, we're nowhere near the site plan process, which is what we own in this thing if it goes forward. What they're all asking for is all the information based on what we've seen so far and what are our comments about it, particularly around seeker concerns.
But
Right.
Rick, as an
Hang
involved
on,
agency,
wait a minute,
as,
Lauren, wait a minute,
I'm going to
Lauren.
interrupt you. Yes, I can
No,
interrupt you.
Stop. Point of order, stop. Let me finish what I have to say.
Why do you
Why?
always not let
Because I'm the
anybody else
chair.
talk?
I'm gonna let you talk when I'm finished. If you can't act in that fashion, I'll have you muted until people who are speaking finish what they have to say. So don't interrupt and don't be discourteous. So Patrick, where we're at and what we've been requested to do is to give input to the town board with the information been provided so far. We don't have any site plan information, although they're saying, here's a site plan. But it's nowhere near what we need eventually. They've given us the EAF. And so if we look at the things that are there, not there, that we have questions about, that's the appropriate area. I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of missing information. And apparently the applicant even agrees with this missing information. So I'd like to see, I think what you're saying is you pretty much agree with everything that's been said here already about the lack of information. And then if you do have specific things that you're concerned with, love to see that in the bullet point fashion, then I can relay that as quickly as possible to the town board. All right,
Okay.
all right, yeah, all right. Maureen?
Thank you, Rick, for letting me speak.
Oh, you're welcome. You're quite welcome. Thank you for being
I
courteous.
would agree with what Liz and Sam have said. There really are no bullet points to send forward. I could go into more depth with 140-18.12 and where they're not fulfilling things. I could go into a lot of depth as to, does it really qualify as an EEO? This goes right back to how the code enforcement officer typed it, and he typed it as something that could be done under our current zoning. It is, as Mark said, I could back what he said. 140-18-1 B2B. You have to justify why you can't do this under the existing zoning. And there are things on view shed, there are things on a lack of information, there's things on flood zone they haven't provided. There's plenty of line items, but there's no reason to do any of that because it should be started with they haven't even answered the questions that you are supposed to answer at the beginning of this, which Liz delineated, which is 140-18-1B, the information to be provided. Why do you need to do this? Why is it an EO? Why does it qualify? So the entire application process that they're supposed to go through to justify why they want an EEO, they have not even addressed those questions, not in the narrative, not in anything they provided. So going through these line items of we should move the building here, does the septic work, is there landscaping? We aren't even vaguely there that because they haven't even justified why this is an EEO that could not be fulfilled through our regular process and our code enforcement officer, which Mary Lou always likes to say, has the deciding factor said that this could be fulfilled by the conversion of a seasonal residence. So I think all we have to say is we don't have enough information. And I will recuse myself at this point, Rick.
You froze. All right, so what we're going to do, anybody have any other questions, answers, not answers, questions, comments?
Are you planning on writing a response and then sending it out for us for review? Is that your?
What I'd like to do is take all the comments, which are pretty much the same.
Okay. Yeah.
In particular, that this board questions the need for an EEO. Okay. That we don't have a significant enough justification for it that we can say. And then go on with, and in addition to, here are the questions that the board poses to the town board that I can't force them not to determine as an EEO unless somebody wants to.
Yeah, they can vote. I mean,
They
it's
can
a
vote and do it.
legislative act, which is subject to public comment, like all the things. And if they want to do it and they think it's correct, they can. And if they do a seeker that we disagree with, we can also reopen it when it comes to us. But like, obviously, we don't want to do any of that. We'd rather
get a justification.
Let's get
as
the
to why this
information,
is-
like Liz
Right.
said.
and maybe there is a reason that, we have yet to understand, like that's totally possible.
All right, so I am going to write something. I'm not going to fly it by everybody,
Okay.
but I can assure you.
Sounds like
it's
you
gonna
have a
reflect,
consensus.
I have some of the same concerns.
I mean, I think it would be good to frame it in the frame of like, we don't think there's enough here for seeker. I was frankly a little confused reading Supervisor Baden's letter to us as to like exactly why it was sent and exactly what the deadline was about. And it was like, here's some more information. Let me know what you think. And like, my just like the Sam response to that is like, I don't think there's enough here for me to have an opinion. And like, I think we can then ask our, like, if it was just me responding, that's what I would say. It's like, I think that this is incomplete. and it needs to be completed in the following ways, at which point I will have an opinion.
I think we need, I think we need to
Right.
respond.
Yeah, of
Not
course.
responding is an answer.
I think your consensus is,
You need to respond, and we
Yeah.
need to respond. Here are the multiples of issues that we have. Oh, by the way, we can state that up front, right? Oh, by the way, there's so much missing information.
It's hard for us to know.
This is a response, but we don't know how to further respond because there's not all the information's on the table.
Right, we have
Have the whole
questions, not
Like
like,
just a septic thing, I said up front, I'm not a septic expert, not a water expert.
right. And Liz brings a
Yes,
great,
it doesn't sound like it is gonna get packaged plant, except depends on what you mean by package.
right, and Liz brings great knowledge and provides us the details for us to make a determination, but I'd like to see them and maybe understand them a little better, which again, we need a lot more.
Liz, what did you, my understanding of a package plant is anything that's not a leach field. Is that, is that essentially what they're doing, a non-leach field, something or another?
I mean, a package plant could be a treatment system with a discharge into a surface water.
And that's what they're
If
doing.
they had a proper treatment in a package plant. You can also have some kind of treatment that then discharges into a subsurface discharge
What's
system
your
like a tile.
understanding of what they're proposing?
It sounds like they're not leaching.
Yeah, they're just doing the septic tank. It says a dosing chamber. And then it's a tile field.
And then it's
So
what?
tile.
it's a tile field,
Okay, so then it is leach. They're leaching.
Yeah,
but they have like a valve vault. I mean, but they're, it's kind of hard to tell, to be honest. It's a
Okay.
little bit more than a septic.
I'd like more info.
Okay,
Thanks, Liz, for that clarification.
Sorry.
Oh, that, what you know is what we don't, so that's okay.
okay. Anne Marie, are you, I'm not sure, is she? on?
She's, I'm not sure if she can make
And she-
comment.
Yeah,
Yeah, she
comment on
can't.
it.
The alternate. She can make comment at this.
Because
meeting.
I asked Mary Lou, she's not here, but she said, yes, she could.
Oh.
Oh.
it's just a discussion item.
Just a discussion, we can ask her.
I think Anne
So
Marie
Anne Marie,
had
if you're
trouble
there,
hearing
we'd like to
us.
hear from you. I'm not sure she's. Okay. Patrick, anything else?
Anne Marie's on.
She left, she might come back on.
Okay.
Patrick?
Yeah, there's a lot else, but I think we've covered pretty much what I'm looking.
Okay.
I would really have appreciated Mary Lou being here to clarify a number of issues, and just, there's a lot that needs to be covered.
Is that something maybe you could add to the letter too, that Mary Lou had something that we need
Oh,
more
that's good.
clarification?
Yeah, that's good. So if everybody, I know it might be a pain in the butt, but if you give me half a page of the bullets,
No problem.
once you hit me with the bullets, I'll remember what it was that fills in. You don't have to repeat everything that you said. I'll know what it, but I need that reminder. These are the issues that I have. And just get it to me in an email ASAP.
Sure.
And
Right.
if I can suggest that you emphasize that the planning board's concerns are both related to their role as an involved agency
Okay.
and site plan.
I actually, that's one comment that I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget. Okay, anything else? So we have no training.
I just have
Hopefully-
other topics of business, but I don't know if
We
we're.
don't have it on the agenda, so
Okay.
I don't want to cover it. Okay. If you want to get it on the agenda for the 14th, that's fine.
Well, no, it was just like conversation about fees since we talked at the last.
Okay,
meeting.
so I have an
Close the
email that I just want to tinker with it a little bit.
Okay, and then the other one was,
It's not in any way any different from what we said at the last meeting, which was we don't have a consensus, but here's some thoughts. That's all I want.
okay. And then my other one was just on the application checklist. I know we were talking about this.
So why
on the
don't we take
workshop
that
meeting.
off? Let's take that offline.
Okay.
All right.
No problem.
The application checklist, in my mind, is still at the point where it lets the board use it at this point until we can make sure it's totally consistent with what was out there before. Because I don't want two things floating around,
Understand.
but to be used by the board is very useful.
Yeah, it was great. I was utilizing it in our,
And the same thing, I will get that out the next day too. I started, I just didn't finish it. Okay, no worries.
Just closing the loop on those things, otherwise.
I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second, Zach,
Mark got it first.
Mike, or Mark, that's fine. And all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks,
Meeting is-
Liz. Meeting is.
Night all.